Alright, over here on the bench we can start talking about the changes for our V2 ATL Pro. If you're not familiar with our Pro chassis, it was basically our all-time low that we angled the skid and changed the forward motor mount locations and the type of holes for the forward motor mount. Chassis has been great for us for over a year and a half now or so, but we figured it was time to do some changing. So the major things you'll notice are we got rid of the front upper link risers. There's really not a whole lot of utilization in them anymore with axles with proper geometry in them and the way the chassis are set up in general. And they also get in the way when you're running larger motors on a transmission mounted setup. The upper link risers get in the way, so they're gone. You still have your upper link mount location directly in front of the skid, just like you would have on a factory SCX setup, just no risers there. The rear risers we did not change, they're the same as our standard Pro. We have slotted the forward motor mount locations for the TGH forward motor mount, so you can slide this up or down for drive shaft clearance or motor clearance to your links. That seemed to be something that a lot of people struggled with, was where to put that. The major change that we made was we raised the belly height. We've raised the belly height almost a 1/4 inch on the V2 compared to the V1. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple things on this assembled truck up here first, and then we'll get into overlaying the different versions of this chassis on top of each other on the bench so you can see them. One thing that raising the belly allowed us to do is get the prop shaft angles for the motor mount and to the transfer case very low. We also have the motor sitting as low as possible. It almost touches the front suspension links, which is, lower the better. This chassis does not have the slots in it like the production unit will. These have been moved to the lowest position. That's why I decided to add the slots. So, yeah, we get the drive shaft angles where they need to be, and you also get a ton of belly clearance. I'll measure it once I put the wheels back on this thing, but right now, at the back of the skid plate, we're sitting about 70 millimeters, and these stands are smaller than a set of 4.75 tires. So, I would guess we got 75 to 80 millimeters of clearance at the back of the skid, which is quite helpful. Another thing that raising this belly, what it does is it eliminates the need to have a big step in your sliders. A lot of times you'll see bodies that the bottom of the chassis hangs way down below, and I wanted to get rid of that. So here's an example of my Class 2 body, if I can get it on there without really looking. But you can see the front of the skid only hangs down about 8 millimeters versus having to, and the bottom of the doors have been cut on this. I cut the whole rocker off of this. Normally this body would have hung down below this skid. So let me grab my cliffhanger body real quick and show you with a cliffhanger. Alright, so we all know the cliffhanger is a fairly short body in the height department here. So the skid normally hangs way below. As you'll see, we're pretty much flush with the skid to the rocker on a cliffhanger body without cutting any of the bed or the front of the body for the shock hoops to protrude through the body. So gained a lot of room there. Alright, I wanted to measure skid clearance real quick while I got the wheels back on. So this is at basically ride height or I got about half travel in these shocks. About 73 millimeters. And if you pick it up to full extension, they're about 87 millimeters. So if you get the back of the skid hung up on something, it'll droop out, and you'll have about 87 millimeters of clearance between the ground and there. So I think we're doing good. All right, let's switch around and do a top-down view. All right, so this was prototype number 1 of the ATL Pro chassis. No one other than me ran this chassis, and one team driver. So the belly was really low on this, and there was a couple changes we wanted to make with the forward motor mount locations and things like that. So this one didn't make it very far. This is the version that has been in production for over a year now. This is what everybody's been running, and with no changes. So if you lay this over top of this one, you'll see about 9 millimeters of belly clearance that we gained between, prototype and V1. If we lay V2 over top of the prototype, you'll see there's a huge difference in the belly height. About 20 millimeters on that. So going from V1 to V2, we've got about 14 millimeters of extra belly clearance in the new V2 versus V1. So that gives you a little bit of a comparison as to what you've got versus what you're going to get if you decide to upgrade. And since I know everyone's going to ask, and I know everybody's going to want to see it, I have a G-Speed V3. So if you had the production G10 Pro or Carbon Pro or aluminum, and you laid the G-Speed up with it, he did have about 3 to 4 millimeters of belly clearance on us. Now if you take V2, there's quite a bit there. So bumper mounts are lined up in the front and the back. Focus. Anyway, about 10 millimeters of belly clearance. Now, shock heights are going to be the same. Link risers, if you run your link in this hole on the G-Speed, it lines up exactly with ours. That's about the only hole that lines up though. And the bumper mounts, because those are SCX based. So yeah, there you have it, compared to a G-Speed, because I'm sure everybody's gonna ask. So I'm going to load my truck up and go play for a little while.